Just gonna charge it and then be done with it. All right. Peace to everyone. Thank you for showing up here. It's a little difficult in the summer, you know, with everything. And now that I have the opportunity here, I don't have to cancel a class and stuff. So that is good. I can offer something useful. All right. So let me know. I don't see anything in the chat. I don't know. Everything looks different here. There we go. I see it now. All right, Sarah, Kareem, BC Realm, YSU, peace. Okay. All right. So anything, what have been happening with everyone? Almost always, right? I wasn't here last week, though. There's only been, I gotta say though, there's only, if we average it out, maybe in these 21 years, I have missed about 2 classes a year, 2 sessions a year. The most 3. And then last year with COVID is a different situation. Mm-hmm. I've never shopped for a microscope, so a lot of things we have to buy online now. So maybe you find it online the right way. All right. There are a couple of questions that people wanted to ask me. So I'd like to hear the progress of everyone, where everybody's at and things like that, Right now, I'm trying to find those questions. It was in my IG, and now it's not showing up here. I get a lot of conversations here, a lot of crazy stuff. Let's see. All right, I found these particular questions I was looking for. All right. I had one in the email I just got. Peace to the God. I feel like the God says, come on, ask me this. Sincere understanding Allah, ask me this. I feel like I was asked this a while ago, actually. You know, of course, I don't mind asking it again. You can be sure that the question that you have, I have probably been asked it. Okay? All that you could not be sure of, it hasn't been asked for you because you don't know the answer. And that makes it worthy. Especially if you are sure that there's no other way to research to find out if I had answered it or where I've answered it. And that isn't always easy, you know. I don't think that the class log here is useful to go back for specific answers to specific questions. I think it'd be too hard for everyone to sift through, especially since I really don't have the time to, you know, to really put it down like that, like to put a whole chart of what we're doing. I was doing that. There were so many projects that I'm trying to work on, and they're so spread out that I realized that I have to cut certain things so that way I could get some of these works actually out instead of just all at 70% done. You know what I'm saying? And the more I keep going, the more I keep thinking of new things. So, because I've already created a couple of book series that I can regularly write. So now I have to actually finish them so they could be on their way and on their journey. That's going to be fun. Hopefully that'll be useful. At least 3 types of book series. All right, peace to everybody here. There's a lot of people here. Shit. Okay. Knowledge Allah. All right. Stocky B24. That's the one how you come up with a name like that. That's crazy. All right. KTJ. Peace. I like the knowledge day because I like the knowledge degree in the 1 to 40. But you know what though? I also I like this idea of starting over. You know, tuning. You know, June was a frustrating month for me on certain respects, right? Training and a lot of injuries. So I didn't get to enjoy the weather the way I had hoped to. You know what I mean? But I'm pretty sure July will be different. All right, give me a moment. I want to get some better light here. Let's see what we can do. Think that's a little better? All right. All right, so everybody that's here, you know, I asked a question and no one really answered it. Again, this is one of the reasons why people don't like building in Sway. A lot of the elders though, because they want answers for certain things, you know. But I did want to I did want to know, you know, how everyone is showing improving. Like, what do they use the show improve that way? You know, I had actually a couple of classes ago. You know, are they using it as a break, like in the middle of the year as a break to see their progress and stuff? You know what I mean? I used it myself because there are a lot of things I'm doing that um, are in good motion, but then finishing and completing things very crucial. You know what I mean? Very crucial. Peace to God. All right. Allah Preem. Peace God. AKA Jimmy Robert. Saba, you asked, how would you say is a good way to break down today's degree in the actual facts? I'm not one to do all that. Here's why. I kind of get a macro concept of things. You know what I mean? Breaking down actual facts, it has to have some kind of meaning for me. I'm not gonna say it's. I think it's disrespectful if I say something like I outgrew that or things like that. But I saw, Dumar, Wadila, remembered in perfection, or the God, break down these degrees so heavily, where each number had a particular thing and all of that kind of stuff. I gotta tell you, I don't. I try to do all that kind of stuff, but I don't really do that with actual facts, or with solar facts, or with numbers in general. You know what I'm saying? Um, I'm kind of more into the relationship of things, the way I see degrees. So when I see numbers, it's more of a. I keep it more basic. You know what I'm saying? Because I like to keep it on the level, and I think this is the way it ought to be. Not that it stays that way, but on the level that I have a command of the meaning of the numbers. Okay? All right, let me explain this, and I'll give you an example. Totally different example. Wise Jamel, another great God. Wise Jamel. So much to say about him. Didn't have children. So one of the very rare elders, the only elder I know that didn't have children. And yet he'd be at the top of the list for those that I would put that love the children. And for a long time though, we were teaching in the 2000s, and we were the only teachers at the school in the 2000s, especially near the second half of the 2000s. You know what I mean? Others would come like special years, and do things, but that consistency and stuff. A lot of people don't know that for much of the 2000s, it was really me and him at a law school in Mecca. Him Wednesday with his oh man, what did he call it? I know somebody knows what it's called, what he called his mathematics though. Like mathematical breakdown. But he did something that I actually didn't do, and I want to explain why I didn't do it, so you get the concept of what I'm saying. Like breaking down, let's say Pacific Ocean, 68,634 thousand square miles. He would break down all the degrees. So he would say, Sunez borns, like you get the S, the 19, the 21, and you get the 14, the 5, the 26, you add them all up, and we all do it with our names. That's why it's the only one I can remember. And Sunez born's culture, like it adds up to 4. You take the number of each letter, you board them. You basically, what we do, we reduce them by adding them together until we get to a number. But this is my name, and it doesn't mean much more to me that it borns culture than if it born God, or if it born equality or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean extra. You know what I'm saying? If someone said, well, Sunnis doesn't embody culture, like, great, if you embodied, because to me, there's a positive aspect to all the degrees. So it really doesn't hold that kind of meaning, though. It only would hold meaning until you put it. And that is exactly my answer. I don't find it scientific enough that giving a symbolism to each and every particular degree misses one thing. Let's say we break down 68,634,000, just the number, right? Because that's what we would do. When we break that down, how would we be breaking it down? We would pick degrees, like the he likes the devil because the devil gives him nothing. Then he don't know what makes rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes. You know what I'm saying? Then his mind becomes a desert, right? You know what I'm saying? Um, and then he doesn't know who his people are, you know, how many of his people are out there, right? And then he could get banished. You see how I just did that really quickly? You know what I'm saying? The Pacific Ocean, and the Pacific Ocean is on the other side of the world, and we're here on the poor parts. So it's like mega lost. You see how I just made that all work? And I built that up as shoddy as I could make it sound, but yet it does work. If I had said this a better way, I'm just saying it's shoddy. Like I'm making this up right now. You know what I mean? And that basically is the science of how you lost in the square, how you get pacified, because Pacific comes from the word passive. Passive. You know what I'm saying? So what would be the best way to build with that? That's actually good though. You know what I mean? I'm glad that we recorded this. You know what I mean? I'm gonna use this. You know what I mean? But if you know you're 120 and you have an understanding though, you could really bullshit your way to some, you know, some builds. You know what I mean? But how did the Pacific Ocean become that exact 68,000, right? 634,000, 68, beating this up already. I had the great build, and then I'm just 68,634,000 square miles, right? How did it get like that? You know what I'm saying? How did it shape to be that massive thing? I don't know that. Just like if we born the word knowledge, I don't know why the word knowledge has the K silent. You know what I mean? And why it needs a W. You know what I'm saying? And why it has a DG instead of just a J. And why does it need an E at the end? You see what I'm saying? We'll say, but that's English, right? But English is very, very adaptive and very absorbing. It's one of the most absorbent languages, to say the least. So its etymology is very complex. You see what I'm saying? So you're actually simplifying something that has way too many variables, and that's why it's no good. You know what I mean? That's why I find it to be no good. So when we build on the actual facts, it isn't really about how do I see the Pacific Ocean. It's ocean, it's there. But use the degrees to start you into the path. See, actual facts. I don't demand specific builds out of students from actual facts. I demand that they can teach me something about the oceans and the nature of the oceans and how the water relates to us. You know what I mean? Give us some type of balance. If you're going to talk about ratios, I'm more interested in ratios, or why there's more Pacific versus Atlantic versus Indian, the lakes and the rivers. You know what I mean? It's more about the ratios. Now, if there's degrees like the 9th and the 10th and stuff, those are very specific and those are very important, because now when you talk about light traveling and now we're getting into the theory of relativity and things, that we could explore. So it gets more important. But it's not the New York Times though. It's not all the builds that fit to print. Just gonna fit them in there, and it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous, the uselessness and the irrelevance that can grow, if you just start building that way. And I have to have a build on each degree. You know what I mean? The degree is supposed to remind you of things, give you insights. You know what I mean? They're not supposed to be just unlocking patterns obsessively, like like we're in our endless conspiracy theory, and this is the map for it all. It kind of reminds me of the whole William Q. Cooper idea. The idea of once you get knowledge of things that seem to be outside of yourself, the devil, the government, you lose your resolve, you lose your calm, you lose. So this is important. One of the reasons we have the lessons, though, is that so we could learn about what is outside, what seems to be outside of us, and why we are placed outside of things. And so we don't have that loss of control. In fact, we have the opposite. Here we go. Okay. I was saying the wrong number, right? But the 68 is there, yeah. 68 million, yeah. I was reading the damn thing wrong. You said oceans cover 63.2, unless we lost over 5 million. I'm not sure what you're saying. Like, you're saying, ooh, my degree has 68. 68 million. I've never had this conversation about actual facts in a long time, so I didn't know people had different actual facts for the oceans. Yeah, you guys are stumping me now. You know, I was saying it wrong though, but I was reading the number wrong. Like reading it out loud wrong. But does it matter that the total square mileage of the Pacific is off by? I mean, some of it fluctuates, right? Everything fluctuates. Also, too, like on technical level, maybe the figures weren't completely exact, but let me do a Google search what they say about it. How many? What we get today of that? I haven't checked this. Square miles. Yeah, when you Google it, you get 63.8, about 63. They approximate it, so that's way off. However, I don't find that to be odd. These are approximations. At the same time, though, the world has fluctuated a lot. Though, like we could, technically, if we're saying technically in the 20th century has been the most damage done to the planet Earth uh, than in many centuries prior. Certainly that we know of. You know what I mean? But again, that degree don't. The degree says 68. You know what I'm saying? That's what it says. You know. And that's why I don't change the degree, because that degree like that would continue to fluctuate forever. The only degree, again, that I ever changed completely um, with Firstborn Prince was the last one, because it was calculated wrong. And it was calculated by brothers. They was getting it all wrong. They was multiplying wrong units to get the 12 trillion blah 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 inches of the planet. There's no such thing as inches of the planet Earth, because it's three-dimensional. So you wouldn't you need square, just like you need the square miles in the ocean. Same thing with the land, right? Same thing with the square mileage of the land, or square inches of the land, which is just a smaller measure of the same square mileage. But actually, in the degree, they're actually multiplying. If I remember in the plus lesson, I have it though. Let's see. Might as well complete this statement. Let me open this plus lesson on. I finally got this onto paper, but I forgot what I called it. Hmm. Okay, there we go. Yeah, to get that 12 trillion number, what was done? They got. Yeah, the incorrect calculation is actually adding what 1 mile is in inches times the square mileage of the planet Earth. So it's multiplying inches and square inches together, which would be incorrect. You know what I mean? But brothers didn't know. You know what I'm saying? I think you brothers that do that research though, right? Again, that would take now. What would be the research though? See, I think the first look how we think here, right? Most of you are looking at the degree and saying that the degree is wrong, so you want to change the degree. That's not really the way you study 120. You verify that you got 120 correctly from the correct source. But then the next step is not to say, well, we got to change the degree because it has the wrong figure. That is a logical way. But the real logic, the real way to build on this is to say that is 120. We don't need to change that. That's what it is. How did it become 63? See? Because the assumption is that it can't, that everything has to remain static and remain the same. And that hasn't happened. How has that happened? You know what I mean? The land masses haven't stayed consistent. Land and peoples have been destroyed viciously. Atomic bombs have been thrown since those degrees were written. You know, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that's the reason or what happened, but massive things have happened on this planet. So it is not out of bounds that water shifts and water goes, right? We also have what? We also have the diminishing of the Arctic and the melting of the polar ice caps. So there's a lot of things that could change that have been changing. So it's when we look at the degrees, we're not here to change the degrees. We're here to verify that we got them correctly as they were given. You know what I mean? But at the time, though, that's not an incorrect calculation. You know what I'm saying? That's not an incorrect calculation at the time. So what happened? You know what I mean? What happened? You know? See, now, Angela, you said that it's 63, and unless we lost over 5 million. How is that not possible? You see what I'm saying? Instead of saying, is it possible? Right? You know, and let me see. Let me go back to these things here. We all had some things to say. Yeah, and I don't. Again, like knowledge a lot. I don't think it. I don't think it matters. You know what I mean? I don't think it matters because the actual facts, as they, as firstborn Prince taught me, like they would get you into learning about this. They weren't to be like these specific information. You see, it's very extremely introductory. It's not, and honestly, very basic, actual and solar facts. You know what I mean? They're common knowledge, but it's a way of teaching, not always to give out deep information, but to give out a balanced, broad-based information. So that way people know the massive diversity of what they could study. That's really where it's at. You know what I mean? So now, like, by always studying 120, you wouldn't be arguing that the Pacific Ocean is 68 million square miles. You would know that, and you would know the reasoning. But if somebody asked you, you would say the right number because these degrees keep you on point. You know what I'm saying? Right? And the truth is, with most people, though, if somebody came to ask you what it was, saying that it was that, you'd probably be close enough. Most people wouldn't know. You know what I mean? I hope that answers the question, the whole concept, because the concept wasn't really this argument about 68 verse 63, you know? Um, it was this idea of just making elaborate symbolism and getting lost in your own world, you know what I mean? All right, KTJ, knowledge the journey, all right? What do you, sister got a question? What we have here? I have often wondered this in reference to the understanding degree of the 1 to 14 and not yet able to show and prove it for myself. What makes North America the poor part? Oh, that's a question I get a lot of times and stuff like that. Again, these ideas of the best part, worst part, poor part, right, is really what's utilized. You know what I'm saying? What is being focused on? You know, what is being left? One of the main reasons that it's seen as the poor part is just it was where it was decided for the exile of the Indians. You know what I mean? Remember, the Indians were exiled 16,000 years ago, right? So for those people at that time, they saw that North America would be that poor part. That's where they would throw them. You know what I mean? They wouldn't throw them into the caves of West Asia like they had thrown the grafted, because that was the worst part, right? So in this case, poor part just means what they haven't really developed yet. You know what I'm saying? What they have left and what they have. Also, sometimes poor part, and I think in this way heavily, means what has been disconnected with. What has one been disconnected with? You know? Which is why I think more study into the Egyptian mystery school system is so crucial, because I think we learn it in the early revolutionary sense that this system of schooling was the way that structured a way for outsiders to gain the knowledge of ancient Kemet. And that's how whites became civilized, these beginnings, right? Civilizing those early Greeks, and then the Greeks go back and then they teach. I think, and I propose that that was a beginning to what the depth of the Commission mystery system was. That was really about connecting all of the original people again, you know? And our great scholars, though, they gave us the connections to what we're dealing with now, which is important, right? Just like 120 does, though, with the Western world. And if we're stuck in this Western civilization, we have to know about the Western man, that is running it, the Caucasian white man that is running it. But there was far more depth to it, and how it was reconnecting original peoples. And I think those last people to connect again were those people on, you know, uh, the other side, and in the other side of the world, right? And thus the poor part, because they could not engage them as quickly as they could anyone else. In those respects, for us, there's a great richness, and that's a truth that they probably recognize themselves. But it isn't something that could be developed as quickly, right? One thing I'll say a lot, Preem, about using the actual facts, I think this. I think I don't worry about it too much about how to apply them, because every time I think about actual facts, I start to think about what do I know about the subjects that they bridge from, you know, cosmology, unified theory, earth science, what is on this earth, how does the earth fluctuate. Right now, we already were introduced to a subject of earth science, though, and how this earth is living and breathing and fluctuating and developing and or deteriorating. You know what I mean? So that to me is the main thing. Why does the knowledge add a cipher degree and the actual facts come back around an understanding degree in the solar facts? Solar facts and and actual facts, a lot of them are just put together by the gods at the end. You know what I mean? Some of them they're actually gods that put them together, not the NOI, to make it 120. So they're add-ons to complete it all. You know what I mean? And that's why I keep telling you, it literally was as a finishing reminder to continue the studies. You know what I'm saying? So that's why. That's why it was repeated. You know, also too for balance. You know what I mean? Not in the whole set of 120, but actually in those sets. You know what I'm saying? Right? The actual facts. So that measurement is given, and a lot of them seem arbitrary too. You know what I'm saying? But these are the facts that gods knew, that they knew for sure, and they were throwing in there. You know what I mean? Because if I remember correctly, um, the supreme wisdom of the NOI doesn't have it like written like actual facts like that. It's a whole bunch of statements and far more than actual facts. You know what I mean? And of course, it just would go like that. But putting the earth there, that's I find it intriguing actually, right? Because I think the real knowledge to add on to the cipher when you learn that Earth is 93 million miles away from the sun is that there's so much more to learn about the connections outside, the macro connections, um, about cosmology, right? I just started a book by Michio Kaku called The God Equation, the quest for a theory of everything. You know what I mean? So most of the science in the book is rooted in that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's literally a book about actual facts, solar facts. You know what I mean? Especially actual facts. You know what I mean? All right, what do we have here? La Prima, I don't think the degree should be updated. You know what I'm saying? Actual facts, I agree that it should be because it was a calculation that the gods made themselves and they made it wrong. So yeah, I don't think that they should be updated though. You know what I mean? It should be kept as a document, you know, that we get insight from. You know, and mind you, if you do more research about the Pacific Ocean, you'll see that the numbers vary. You know, so it's going to fluctuate. It's, you know, the Earth is a living thing. The truth, he Kareem, is that the degrees, many of them might not be right and exact numerically as far as measurements. So, but these measurements again are fluctuating, so they could always change. You know, they could be right again years from now. So it's not an end all be all. You know? So you said Google may not have the right answer as well per se because I checked the 2020 astronomy book at Books a Million. It was different from Google's estimation. What 120 says. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. I've never really worried about it though. Knowledge a lot. You said I memorized the actual facts, but there's so many numbers. There's really infinite amount of possibilities as far as drawing them up, bringing them down. Indeed, indeed. Um, if the calculations are ever changing, though, the actual measurements are ever changing. The point is that you know the degree, you know what it was then, you know, because then it becomes a historical artifact, you know, at that date and time. And I agree, now, July, I agree with what you're saying to Preem. And so you said I just checked 5 different sites. Some say 63.8, some say 70. Yeah. 793. You said exactly as once heard a meteorologist brother online some years ago trying to pick apart the Bill degree and the knowledge to free cipher on what actually happens versus what was expressed in order to spark. Hmm. Peace out, magnetic. Now, as a journey, you said many civilized people I know who study 120 also study other academic areas and disciplines in order to supplement contextualized knowledge. I don't think that anything is worthwhile if you only knew that. You know what I mean? It's only in this Western world that we have to memorize one type of thing or be experts of one thing. I forget about that science of the clock stuff. It never really resonated with me. I learned it a while ago and then I forgot. I think it's because I have my own way of dealing with how I gauge my own time or how I write my own history. You know what I mean? But from what I remember, because I couldn't tell you exactly what it was, um, I gotta say I don't. It just didn't appeal to me the way I was taught that. You know what I'm saying? So it didn't really resonate. You know, that science of the clock. You know what I mean? Sometimes I think some teachings are a little bit too elaborate um, for the simple diligence of discipline. Because when we talk about the clock, we just need the simple diligence of discipline. You know what I mean? Focus to keep things simple. You know what I mean? There are many tasks, but keep one in mind, and then you go on to the next. You know, the science of prioritization. You know what I mean? And just that science of focus. You know what I'm saying? And practicing focus. Focus is a martial skill. It's something to practice. You know what I mean? That's peace, Malik. I've never heard anything specific, Supreme Being God, about migrations to the jungles of Africa 50,000 years ago. Um, Elijah talks about stuff like that, but I don't remember anything that the Father said specifically about that. Original man is everywhere. Remember, they had to go sometime. You're right, Stocky. B24, it's all approximate, and yes, earthquakes definitely, that changes everything. Remember, there's earth under that water. Sabi, you said, do you agree with the Bering Strait theory about Indians coming from Siberia? Um, I don't discount it. I just don't think that there's one theory of where they come from only. I think, like all original people, they come from a lot of places. Not just one place. In regards, peace, Mr. G1. Peace to God. In regards to the right and exact accuracy of actual, I would say due to references from the time actual facts were written. There we go. And that's where the real research takes place. You have to dig up encyclopedias and things like that. You both, Malik, because the only way to protect babies is to have discipline. So it'd be one and the same, right? Indeed, indeed. You know how in the theory of relativity, where the faster you move, time changes. Time is something to manipulate. You know what I mean? And time goes faster and more usefully the more that you engage in it, right? So it has to be engaged. You know what I mean? And off topic, Case, I mean, not really. I don't. I like songs. I like songs. I don't want to hear bars all day. It just has a lot of great guys on it. But I actually have about 30, maybe 40 albums that I have to listen to. You know, and that's one of them. But I don't see how people always want something new to hear. I think people have to make songs, not just display skill sets. You know. Mm. I didn't see that, Kareem. That's crazy. I'm not surprised though. Um, I think symbol. I think when I'm teaching things, symbolism works though. But I like people to make their own symbolism because then it could be encoding instead of teaching. You know, and it's why I don't really teach 120 for you guys to over make excessive symbolism out of degrees. You know what I mean? Because let's say like with the knowledge degree in the actual facts, you'd make a symbolism out of that, and then what would happen? You'd be making symbols of stuff, and you'd be fitting things. And sometimes with symbols, you make what you know fit into a symbol. And what happens is that what you haven't proven can also be put into a symbol, and it always looks more right. the unproven when it is symbolized. Um, so I don't always use symbolism, but I rather like to teach students to learn how to use it, to give themselves cues as memory devices and things like that. But I I really am teaching you all to be mindful of critical thinking at all times. You know, I would have to say I don't think that there are many symbols I have taught. You know what I mean? Like concepts of symbolism, all that stuff. I don't think so. Mr. G1, you said, what's your favorite and or most useful style of martial arts? Hmm. This is where I scream, never teach the Wu Tang. Yeah. What's a good book to recommend on Taoism? The best book, you start Taoism by reading Taoism, not about Taoism. So the best book to start with is have a quality translation of the Tao Te Ching, right? Um, Sometimes you can get better with that. Reading the translation, John C. H. Wu. Um, My second best is the translation of Thomas Cleary because Thomas Cleary is always on point. Me read many translations. Book on Taoism in general. The more Taoism texts you read, I would stick with anything translated by Thomas Cleary because read the ancient texts that are ancient Taoist text and Thomas Cleary's insights and history on the translation will do you much more. They're getting books about it, but there's many people like Thomas Cleary, Eva Wong. I'm trying to think about this, but I can't. They usually don't read books about Taoism as opposed to reading the ancient texts, but I do collect all of them. Let me see if I could think of something. See if I could pull up something here. Yeah, yeah. A lot of the good Cleary books, because I find his to be very well researched and gives you good research. Like a good book is a good short book is Pocket Taoist Wisdom. That's a good beginner book and by Thomas Cleary and stuff. If you email me, I'll send you some Taoist literature. That way you could start. You know what I mean? Um, as far as my favorite or most useful style of martial arts, I mean, I'm trained in Shaolin Kung Fu, and that focus, or where it all springs out from, is Wing Chun. So Wing Chun is, I find it to be the most useful martial art because it could be practiced by anyone, regardless to size or strength or physical ability. So it has a benefit to all of the other martial arts in that you don't have to be very well physically and endowed or athletic in any kind of way. And it has all the simpleness. So everything you'd see in the best of boxers and everything like that of any kind, best of fighters, they would have those simple protection techniques that are the foundation of Wing Chun in some ways. So much easier than a lot of other more difficult, more brutal techniques like you know, um, I don't know, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and things like that, where you're trying to grapple somebody and stuff, which I don't always find the most useful. Because you have to get techniques perfect, and you're often lost using muscle. The reason I say this is because nothing goes down like you think. Like it never goes down where they give you arm bar it and do this. It doesn't work that way. You know, everything's in the heat of the moment, and Wing Chun is about blocking and stuff, and there's such a high probability of defending yourself successfully. You know what I mean? That it only could, even the striking blows of Wing Chun are designed to take you back to defense. So it's always useful to all of humanity. I don't. There's a lot of walnuts. I don't know. There's a lot of walnuts in the background because when I go out to train on my Wing Chun dummy, there's always so many squirrels and stuff. So we give the squirrels a lot of that. But Ezekiel bread wouldn't be behind me; it'd be rotten. It'd be in the fridge. You know what I mean? So they're all in the fridge. The Ezekiel bread, right? Uh, Dow backwards is oat. I know that yeah, but you see, the word Dow is not. It's not the original word. So like all of the flipping and cleverness is really irrelevant. That's exactly what I mean by looking too far into it. That type of analysis is, and it's not. It's spelled with a T, but it's really Dow. So now, what does it say now? Ode. You know what I mean? And it's only to in today's day and time, like maybe I say the last 10 years, that English English in their pinyin. That's what you call it when you make English words out of Chinese words to pronounce them. The English pinyin, that they stop you spelling it with a D. Okay, I always like spelling with a T. You know what I mean? But a lot of texts don't spell it that way. You know what I mean? Um, but I have found in the last 10 plus years they have. So, you know. Okay, yeah. I have all the Shabazz Palaces records. I don't know if I have the very new. If they release something this year, I don't have it. But there's so many things I collect that I haven't gotten around to listening. Shabazz Palaces would be one of them. So if they have something new, I haven't. I'm not even close. Okay, I see that they have something called 20 years science. Released in May. Yeah, yeah, but I definitely really have to take the time to listen to their records. I just really like that they're so progressive. Knowledge the journey. You said that's true about BJJ. The reality, it's not often practically useful outside unless you are very good due to the knowledge required to apply in free for all situations. Indeed, indeed. But when I wear polo, I'm not trying to get on the floor with anybody. And the way I was taught was to fight multiple men. And at my height and weight, though, it doesn't make sense to get on the floor with multiple men. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to do that in any kind of sense. So certainly not fighting. Um, so you always want to keep your feet though, because I intend to fight, survive, um, keep my family, my children thriving, and get out. Right? You know? We can, Sal, but really, if you say it means something like zoo, it's all a reach. It's all a reach because these are pinionizations. They're Roman pinionizations. They're simple pronunciations. And trust me, a lot of words that we think we're correctly saying or respectfully saying, we're saying the shit wrong. You know what I mean? So be aware of that. Okay, knowledge is a journey. You said if knowledge is the foundation, it should be the most substantial element in the situation. And the street fight we require a huge amount of knowledge to support that weight. Indeed, indeed. Nah, Mr. G1, you didn't question you didn't say the question poorly. I have spent a lifetime sharing what I truly do, so keeping secret a technique um, of how I fight or anything like that isn't going to be as helpful to me. You know what I'm saying? I teach and share it too much. The only way I could survive though is if I do it well. You know, so I do my best to do it well. Yeah. But as knowledge a journey, as you're female, this is what would be simple. Like you would protect from your center out. You would realize that the greatest strength you would have would be striking to the center because you form a triangle. This is the base of the triangle, and this is the other parts of the triangle. So when you strike out, and that's the focus of Wing Chun. These fists would be going as fast as you could and rolling over so close that if you missed, this one could revert and you could block because you've already learned minimalism in blocking. So you're blocking only here to here, not here. You know what I mean? So it's completely useful. You know what I mean? Right? Yeah, it's real hard to run away from the ground. That's for damn sure. You know what I mean? You know, and trust me, I'm older now. I'm 45. I don't always practice the bounce back up. You know what I mean? Right? You know, obviously, I keep myself as light. I try to keep myself in the perfect combination of lightness and strength, and that's hard to balance because strength, having muscle, is about weight. So the heavier you are, the more muscle you have, right? But then you're not as agile with it. So speed is compromised. So speed is compromised. So it's always that perfect balance and stuff, right? Then you would have to be more athletic, I want to do as little as possible. You know what I'm saying? Just like before this violent situation arises, I'm doing all I can to do as little as possible and not fight and not do anything. Even fool the potential opponent that we are not even enemies, you know, until they cannot harm me. You know what I mean? Man, as to me, that is the make of a martial artist, though. You know what I mean? And my own wisdom has gotten me out of many potential fights, and it has nothing to do with physical skill. You know, like I say a lot, if you want a general lesson of martial arts, it's not what technique you're picking or anything. It starts even earlier than any of that, and that's why I could teach it to you right now. It's your eyes. Okay, it's how well you see things. You know what I mean? So you practice looking at things. You know what I mean? You practice looking at animals out there. You know what I mean? If you see a squirrel, you follow it everywhere. You see a bird, you follow it. Notice everything that your eyes can see. You see? I give you the example. A fly, right? The common house fly is hard to swat and kill, right? You try to go faster and you think it's because of your speed. The truth is that the fly is not really much faster than you. The truth is that the fly has better eyesight than you. So it sees you coming no matter how fast you're doing it. It sees you coming. So it already knows the trajectory of the way you're coming. So it moves out at the right time. Just like if a punch is coming, you're moving out at the right time. Whereas the wrong time, if you're a tiny little fly, they get you killed. You know what I mean? And so the greater you can see things, the better your eyesight is. The more that you can see the potential of danger, people's body language. You know, people go, "Oh, I just feel like an aura," but what you're really doing though is that because you're controlling your nature so much, everything else becomes more noticeable. You know what I'm saying? Try to see it like you know yourself so well and you see so much of what you're seeing out there that there's a great contrast that happens. You know what I mean? And that extreme knowledge of yourself and what you will and would not do becomes such a contrast that you start to see the way people are moving and start to see the way that they are moving, the intentions of their movements. You know what I mean? And now it becomes even something you can even label, though, the sincerity of their movement, the arrogance of their movement. You know what I mean? The sadness of their movement. You know what I mean? The depression of their movement. So it's important. This is the most important thing in martial arts. You know, there's a reason that somebody like Bruce Lee was so fast and something. You know, it wasn't just because he was punching as fast as possible and things like that. Those are feats of massive athletic skill. But it was his eyes that were trained the best. You know, it was his eyes that were trained the best to go along with that, to lead the way. And yeah, the art of war, fighting without fighting, right? But that really is the first lesson of that. What dates are in there? There are no real dates in the 30th degree in the 1 to 40. You know what I mean? But the 30th degree in the 1 to 40 is crucial. It's a powerful degree. Powerful degree. You know what I'm saying? It tells you that the original man is not a black germ or a brown germ. That the original man is the black and brown germ. You see? And once you start separating those germs, well, now that they don't function, and there is something wrong genetically now coming to what? It is two germs. If you destroy one, what's happening in each subsequent generation is that what? Something is replacing that. Something is replacing the germ that was destroyed, and then now a grafted germ. And now you can what? Get rid of this. You know what I'm saying? Every pure germ can be grafted out. This is the 600-year process, and it's by dilution that this happens. You see? And the germ becomes white and weak, and thus the potential for wickedness comes. Yaqub did not make wickedness. And he cannot produce automatic wickedness. There's no such thing. He cannot produce automatic wickedness. That's a horror movie. You know what I mean? Wickedness is how you behave in contrast to other things, right? Wickedness is how one is judged as far as humanity and what we consider humanity, a way of living, what we consider humane, a way of living that doesn't take from other people's way of life is the humane way. Anything else would be more in line with an animalistic behavior, right? A beastly way of life, right? So then what happens, right? So that degree is not really giving dates. It's really detailing the process. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you talk about the 26th degree. Okay. That makes sense. Cool though, because I love the 30th degree. I think it's we could talk about the dates and everything, but the 30th degree is the one that you really, really ought to, everyone ought to focus on. You know what I'm saying? There are degrees more important than others. You know what I mean? The 26th degree, I mean, go through the 1 to 14. Look, it's this simple, right? Get a chart, make a linear chart, get a piece of paper, right? And you write 0 common error, or what people say AD, right? We say common error now. 0 AD, 2000, put the 1930, just plot all the dates that you can, okay? And when it says certain things 2,000 years from the date of this writing, then you go back and do it. I don't want to give the answer like now. It's not really going to give the answer. I have to do the whole thing, and I would have to chart it and use a blackboard, which could be done. But part of the exercise is making your own chart and doing it. It isn't that complex, because in your chart, what you try to do is you say, listen, 2,000 years ago is 0, the year 0. Then 2,000 years more is 4,000 years. And then 2,000 more is 6,000 years. So you can chart. Now you can chart and go all the way back and plot where these things would have happened. And that's all you need to do. You know what I mean? That's all you need to do. You know? If you try to chart from the 26th degree, it gets confusing, because that's the add-on that puts everything together. If you start charting from the 4th degree, start there from the 4th degree, okay? And even earlier, like with the 2nd degree and the 1 to 40, put everything. Indians were exiled 16,000 years ago. So get the dates, 1934. Just make a linear chart. You know what I mean? Give yourself space so you could do it. You could do it on paper, but it's also easy to do it on a computer. So that way you have endless space to go backwards. You could go up. You know what I'm saying? So it could go from the earliest date down, or if you could do it, the newest dates, the current dates here, and then just go down on the paper. If you do it on paper, it might be easier like that. So you could be going up from the beginning to today. But it's really about charting the different degrees. It really isn't that hard. But if you start from the 26th degree, it has 2 reference points. So it's confusing. You know what I mean? But it's not really that difficult once you chart it. We recognize unlike energy more rapidly. Yeah, but it also could be more coded, you know what I'm saying? More subtle, right? No, it doesn't get easier, Saba, you said, do you think the inspiration behind the fictional character Kung Lao in Mortal Kombat came from Lao Tzu? Lao is a common name. You know what I'm saying? Kung Fu means hard work. You know what I mean? So, Lao Tzu means old teacher. So, who knows? He's putting things together. That sound kung fu-y. I don't really follow all of that Mortal Kombat stuff, so I don't know anything about it. So, you know what I mean? Indeed, Bruce Lee was right. The most dangerous person is the one who listens, thinks, and observes. He's telling you. You know what I mean? He's telling you. Yeah, Malik, I mean the fourth degree and the 1 to 14. You could start there. You know what I mean? Also, too, in the 1 to 10, you want to plot you know what I'm saying? Christianity is 551 years old and all that kind of stuff. Chart everything. Once you chart everything, though, then it becomes very simple and not so misunderstood. Let me see if I find those questions since it's a little quiet right now. Maybe I could find those questions that were asked of me. One of them was about the universal flag. Okay. Um, years ago, the God said, years ago, after I announced 120, I was allowed to wear the universal flag. Throughout the years, I made God's teacher, made them learn how to break down the flag before acknowledging 120, and they were allowed to wear it. Is there a right or wrong way on when one is allowed to wear it? Can it, the Father gave it to certain people that were not in this nation. I think that the way He gave it out isn't the way it should be given out. However, if we're talking about students and those under the study, I think that they shouldn't wear a pin with the flag unless they really knowledge 120. I think they should knowledge 120 and wear the flag to begin with, on a T-shirt or anything, because we're going out there representing. I don't know why someone would represent something unless they fully knew it and realized that they was really about that, and I think the only way to really make that decision is to go under the study completely, so I don't suggest students wear a flag if they haven't knowledge 120, you know what I'm saying? And during that process of knowledging 120, they would learn what the flag means and the basic stuff, what I mean? You just need a basic, you get this plus lessons about the points and all that, but it's really about knowing the symbolism of it, you know um man, woman, and child, supreme math, 16 shades of the original man, represented by the 8 points, divided into black and yellow. So I mean, that's it. So to me, you wear anything though, you should be able to know how to represent it. And I think that the best way to represent it as a student that would really represent it is to actually have knowledge 120. I don't see any other way. Why make problems? Why would somebody? We deal with knowledge though. So why would you represent something without having knowledge it? Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to me. Right? What do we have now? All right. Let me get this other question. Okay, let me read these other questions. Very intriguing. Um, he asked me, should the original people separate from the white race, and should we drive the devils back to Europe? I think it's impossible. I think it's not only are we mixed though, but it's about the mentalities. It's not really. It's about the mentalities of the people. So it's not really about white people. You start getting rid of white people, though. What does that mean, though? Certain parts of the globe, it'll be very distinct, but for others, though, like there are original people that look white, that pass for white. There are white people that are righteous, that just don't have the knowledge of self. Um, and there are original people that clearly look like original people, but they fiends, So it's really like more like the spook who sat by the door, where, we're out there absolutely making decisions. You know what I'm saying? We're making decisions for people. You know what I mean? About people. You know? And I think that kind of judge and jury, though, is not right and exact. You know what I mean? Knowledge the journey. You said, why was Musa half original? Was that a statement about his heritage or grafted mind state? It's about what he was teaching. What he was teaching was half original. He was teaching him the knowledge of how to be useful, but he was also teaching him devilishment. So that's why. So most likely would have been technically an original man. Let me see. You know, he posed this. He said with his question, he said, I mean, after all the extreme sick, sadistic shit they did and is doing and might do in the future, if we don't separate, I try and best to see the good and all, but sometimes I feel it's a merciless war they're waging on us. Because that's what it is. And it might seem clear in certain countries of original people, hey, we just get rid of the devil. But in a place like America, it isn't so simple. You know what I mean? Right. But I've never been a separatist like that in that sense because I'm more focused with what we do and what we create than working on being a judge and juror for everything. You know, they're both very time consuming and it cannot be done at the same time. You know, and in this complex world, we'd have to be judge and juror. The truth is that most of the original people would choose a system like capitalism. You know what I mean? If they had the chance, would be as imperialist minded as anyone else. So I don't think that would be the most useful. You know. Hope that answers that question. So, but you said one way of taking the devil off the planet is ignoring them in public. I don't mean being rude or distasteful, but keep conversations with them brief. I think that's so. I think that's so. But that would be the same with any stranger. You know what I mean? I say that because I've tried to teach them, but most of the time they end up doing devilishment, like saying some perverted stuff or something. That is very true. You know what I mean? Guard your jewels. You know what I'm saying? Guard them. Pro Dillinger, peace, peace. All right. Complete God Allah, peace. The best way to for me to remove the devil off my planet is by controlling the polarity of my thoughts. I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. You know what I mean? But it's never out of bounds to talk about this issue. You know what I mean? But know that it takes on a judgment of who is being, like, we defined as devil, and now we start defining what is good and what is bad behavior. You know what I'm saying? And the truth is that no country, no world, no society is run where there isn't some type of balance or reality where things happen. And for all the good that is done for the whole, there's always a portion of the society that don't get those benefits. And this increases the larger the society is. You know what I mean? That's just a fact. You know what I mean? And in this world, though, where countries are large, you know what I mean? And countries inhabit millions of people, it becomes even more difficult to have one policy that can affect everyone, righteously. And this is the problem. This is the real problem. You know what I mean? This is the real problem that happens. Pro Dillinger, you said that sounds like duality. We can have God without the devil, good without bad. Like my enlightened knowledge me always says, life has no partnership with death. You know what I'm saying? No partnership with death. You know. But we made this hell to come out right. So we made a hell, a work that is based on the contrast of what we would say is good versus evil, more particularly right versus wrong. You know. So that's something that we have to expect and we have to understand, right? And if that's the case, though, then we have to deal with it. Okay. Indeed, complete God of love. God for some is the devil for others. LT Station, peace. There are gods who say that some of these characters in 120 never existed, like Moses, Yaqub, Jesus. If that's true, why do we still teach 120 like that? Babies would have stuff. Babies would have stuff to unlearn. But here's the thing, right? This is what you said. You said there are gods who say that some of these characters in 120 never existed. These are characters that cannot be proven to exist or proven not to have existed. But we can prove that those times influenced in such a way that the reality of the character's actions are actually absolutely true, right? So now we do have to teach in some kind of way, right? There were people like Jesus is probably the most irrelevant technically, but certainly someone came with the idea of grafting because these individuals came seemingly out of nowhere, right? So a people was made and breeded somewhere, right? There are countless stories of people being exiled that were not right and exact, and then were taught to come back. How did they come back and be so much better able to adjust? So Musa, because it's not Moses, it's Musa, because the Moses in the Bible is not the Musa in 120. Okay, Musa means teacher. So that would have been someone that was teaching. You know what I mean? Saba, you said there are original people who do devilishment as well, but they're a lot worse at it or less cunning. When you asked me if you ever acknowledged Paul Guthrie wisdom on Fard and the lessons, yeah, about what Paul Guthrie says and stuff like that. Yeah, you know what I mean. Paul Guthrie, he wrote Making of the White Man. And in that book, though, he corroborated a lot of the truths in there, but he also had different starting points of it, and he traced it more to different places. You know, so the way he was charting back the 2,200 miles and all those was leading to different places, and on those origins there. In India Buddhism, we already know that the Buddhism degree is off by you know, a whole space. You know what I mean? But I don't think too much of it either. I don't, because the truths in 120 are stuff that he corroborated. As far as the devil being made, you know what I mean? It's really the origins of where Mecca was and all those that becomes the argument. And the truth is that I don't find those to be very relevant. You know, when teaching you 120, it's not to prove every single thing as far as it was exact here. It's to see it as a document to study that leads you to massive amounts of knowledge and the ability to question things. Most of those things are going to be proven. But then most of those things, they're going to lead you to more information. I think that a lot of the information in 120 is a lot like the way I was learning actual facts, that a lot of the gods made up the actual facts, that they're neo-correct, you know what I mean? And they lead to other situations, you know what I mean? So I don't really get too profound on saying that, oh, this isn't correct, so the whole thing is wrong or things like that. You know what I mean? What do you mean by off? Well, it's not 35,000 years ago. It's more like 3,500 years ago. So it's a whole zero off. That's what I mean, light visible. You know, if we go by technically when Buddhism was officially said to be started, you know what I mean? It's technically it's off. You know what I mean? It's off. So me and Rishi was talking about Paul Guthrie earlier. My question is, if he studies 120, why doesn't he have a righteous name or at least some type of pseudonym that signifies he's for the original man? Maybe he's not. Maybe he's not. Why would you assume that he has to be for the original people or that he can't be for the original people? Right? Just think about that for a minute. Like that's your or maybe, you know, like that's your definition of what would be the most greatest way for someone to say or show and prove that they're with this. But that's not guaranteed. I mean, just we could meet somebody from Africa and they could prove that the black man is God. He might not even use 120. He might just use fucking chemistry. He's not the God. He hasn't proved it. Right? That's peace. And light visible, and add on to that. The reason it's okay to even leave it there because it still leads you to what? 35,000 years ago is really like the time of Hinduism. But the more you study, the more you realize that some of these near correct and somewhat incorrect are not so relevant to obsess over if you're really studying and learning, right? Is because Hinduism is what actually has all of the principles of Buddhism. It just gets out of hand. And that's, you know, what Shakyamuni was doing when he devised the principles of Buddhism and the Eightfold Path. You know, that it wasn't wrong what they knew as far as what Hinduism was, is that it went astray and wasn't what it ought to be. The truth is the truth, regardless to whom or what. It is knowledge the journey. But when we talk about truth, right? Not everything is exact. When we talk about truth related to time, though, how are we measuring time of when it happened? When we talk about a space that something happened in, is that space normally, was it considered that space prior? You know what I mean? Did it have different names then? You see, all of this is something to take into consideration. LT Station, a God called himself correcting me by saying that I couldn't say that. I don't know what saying that was, what that was, because everything in 120 is literal. Well, that God, so-called God, wasn't taught very well, because everything in 120 is not literal. Okay, it's literally not literal. You know. Right? Once you read the first degree and it says that the original man is the cream of the planet Earth, then you know that there is some literary license and creativity even in 120. Okay? Man isn't cream. Okay? You give me all this sperm talk and it's fancy, like man was just sperm, this and that. But it's not as we know man. So, you know. LT, you said I like that you mentioned both sides, that those characters cannot be proven to have existed or not existed. Right, right. But we could prove that what happened did exist. That's what's more important. Okay. And then now we know that someone did do that. So then now the likelihood of someone like that existed. Right? The idea of making a devil existed. And the ideas start with one man. You know what I mean? And then it became a whole society, right? Of 59,999 followers that followed him, right? How many of those followers were adding on, developing, thinking of ideas, right? So, you know. You said you didn't, LT. You said you didn't understand what I was referencing when I said that he said I can't say that. By that, I was talking about my prior chat where I mentioned the boy who cried wolf. Okay, okay. Y'all be meeting some funny people, man. I don't know. Okay. Let me know what we have. Let me know what we have. I haven't gotten any builds on the day's mathematics. All right, let me know how you see the mathematics. Y'all have a lot of questions. I've answered some of the questions. I don't think I have any other questions and stuff, you know? Also, let me know what books you're reading. You know, I haven't heard what books people are reading lately. Ah, okay. By the way, everyone that's answering like knowledge the journey and stuff, I don't really know everyone who everyone is, so you know, shouldn't be just randomly making you answer things and stuff. You know, you can email me, ask me any questions. Let me know, you know, where you're from, what you're looking for, the things that you need in this classroom. You know what I mean? What would you like to learn? Because even as I teach the class regularly in the classroom, I still will attend to everyone here as best as I can. You know what I mean? Right? Today's math is knowledge, the foundation of everything in existence. Our fundamental level of knowledge and grasp of what we look, listen to, and observe determines our ability in all existence. Okay. If we see a house being built with a solid foundation, it naturally follows that the rest of the structure is in line to be successful. An unsatisfactory foundation indicates otherwise. Well, you prove that being a foundation is crucial, right? You know, I had a class. If you look up the other not find out when the last class I taught on the knowledge day, I thought was an interesting session to listen to because I really went into this questioning of what is knowledge, though. How do you know when something is knowledge and not just a consistent information to be used? You know, right? Calm Islam League. Haven't seen you in here in a while. You said I'm reading The Fountainhead by Anne Rain. What made you choose Anne Rain out of all people? You know, it's an interesting choice. I have some of her books too that I am in the one that I'm in the process of reading. Very interesting ideas, uh, and interesting because some of them are disagreeable, but nevertheless intriguing. Peace to God, power born. You said, Kamas Lama, you said you read Atlas Shrugged years ago. Okay, yeah, I have that book. I've never read it. I never read it. I read The Fountain too, but never finished it, so I'm on that now. Okay. One thing I like about Ayn Rand is that she is anti-mystery. God attributes everything that we see around us as the work of man and his effort, not some unseen being. So I take the best parts of it and leave the worst parts alone. Very true. Very true. That is a good observation of that, certainly. Knowledge law, you said to me, how do you serve first degree? Being a, how do I serve? Interesting. Applied to the original man's relationship with his woman. For example, it mentions cream of the planet Earth bring the woman. I mean, obviously, that's a metaphor for sperm. Obviously, there's no other way to it. Nourishing the planet Earth, you know, right? The metaphor is just screaming there. There's no way for me to serve it. It's already served. You know what I mean? It's not that as poetic as it seems. You know what I mean? Sounds good though. She has other books and that are philosophical and stuff like that, and they could be very interesting. That's not where I would lead people to go first, but if you make your library giant, it's good to have some of her books in there, especially if you ain't got to pay for them. Light visible. All right, wise you. Let me not skip wise you. Peace, God. Today's math is knowledge to know, look, listen, observe, and to respect. Just been observing respectfully, just doing the knowledge and geometry, how pi was formed by other cultures. Huh? Good stuff. Okay. Light visible. I got these books in the mail today. My books for the month. I'm working with from Babylon to Timbuktu, Valley of Dry Bone, Nature Knows No Color. I haven't started them. Okay, those are strong books. Yeah, get through them. Those are good books. Um, What I always find interesting on the knowledge day is that people tell me what not doing the knowledge is, you know? So I always remind all of you, to, even though I say this all the time, that's not what knowledge is. Knowledge is not doing the knowledge. Knowledge is what? You know what I mean? In actual fact, it can be proven and cannot be altered by any variable that we know at that time. So for knowledge to be knowledge depends on the knowledge that we have. That's why knowledge is infinite. It's infinite backwards and also forwards. It needs a premise and it also needs more. It needs things to be already known and it needs things to be known. You know what I mean? For us to say something is true, it means that it cannot be altered. It means that it is consistent. Consistent with what? Consistent with what we already know to be true, what we've already shown and proven, right? And the truth is that knowledge is very much something that exists by living. And so knowledge begets knowledge, and knowledge must be used, and that's what becomes wisdom. And because all knowledge ends up being used, right? There is a way, and that way leads to what? An insight of the particular individual that has it, and therein lies the reason that all things are created, because there is understanding. Okay? And that all things are created. Because it is the creative reality of what understanding is that leads to what a culture is lived. Because that is the core of what is being lived in a culture. And whatever expresses itself outwardly is power that becomes a balance throughout all things, that reaffirms what you are as the creator, as the earth, as a righteous being. Then that is what constructs or deconstructs something anew that leads to what? The completion, the borning of what? More truth. And that's why I say truth is lived. Right? Sometimes it's good to have this on video, recorded. Could rewind that. See what I mean by that. If you have questions on it, you don't have to have these questions now. You can ask me these questions later. Right? Whenever you have them. Right? Whenever you're building. Whenever you're studying. You know, this or anything else, right? So when you break up knowledge being the first day of the month, you break it up and you write your history this way. What is the knowledge that you have gained consistently throughout this year, throughout the last month? That will set the premise of how you will guide and elevate the way you plan this month. You see? And the second day, and then the third, and then the fourth. And you start to study your own patterns. always important to take that knowledge day to start to really build, to really study. But I don't. I think that it has to be that we look at knowledge as far as what is knowledge, as opposed to um, how we do the knowledge. You know what I'm saying? We keep saying how we do the knowledge. It's That's not what knowledge is. You know what I mean? Right? When you say it like that consistently, then what we're doing though is we're training ourselves to always be doing the knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the state of what knowledge is. And we're not uncovering knowledge. In other words, we're not realizing that it is us that is the source of knowledge. So it is the source of our creativity. What are we creating? What are our ideas? Because it is our ideas that become the next knowledge. Our ideas that say, what if? And then constructs that world by wisdoming to see what is true, what is not. And then ultimately coming to this understanding. That can help. I think this, right? I have found that that could be helpful. But I think it's more about if we say, I don't want to talk and keep talking, it isn't so much that we're keeping to talk and we're diluting ourselves by continuing to talk. It's that we don't have a place, we don't find a way to develop the quality of what we're saying. This is why I have you write in your journal. The more that you can write in your journal, the more that you could develop your ideas about all types of subjects, the way you can develop your own creativity, what that creativity will be and how you will address it, how you will engage it. This is really what needs to take place though. So it's not that you need to stop talking, like have these words. You need to find a place to put them out there where they're not interacting with anyone else. And that's why writing is so crucial because um, you have to practice speaking. But people do that by speaking to other people. So, or through social media. So all their failures of speech, which should be many, it's more like a baseball average, a great baseball average, as opposed to a free throw. If you keep speaking, it'll stay where you'll just be 30% good. But you need to write. You need to write and funnel your thoughts, funnel your ideas, right? To learn to develop your speech so that you answer answer questions exactly as you intended to answer them. This takes practice. And some of that practice isn't just speaking or not speaking. Sometimes it is speaking through other mediums. Okay. Different color markers or pencils. I tend to write in my journal with a black pen and a blue pen. I shift them up for different reasons, But usually my notation about books is done in blue pen. And then that way I can find, you know, the differences. Absolutely. I couldn't say that it decreases because it has to be there. There's no way you can be a good writer without reading. Reading is the major practice. You have to read. There's too many things that need to be known to write well, so you have to keep reading about. You have to keep getting content. You know what I mean? And you also have to see the word in play at all times. You know, it's the same thing with music. To make music of any kind of worth, you have to be listening to a lot of music, a lot of music. You know, it's just the way it is. You know. So yeah, definitely, definitely. You know, and just like practice to write better. You have to write a lot. Where there's a bulk of work that isn't for use, and then there's a bulk of work that is just for everyone. Things that you actually do publish. And if you're really writing a lot in your journal and stuff, the worthwhile things will spill out. They will spill out of the journal works that are just private for yourself. You know. Good question. As I progressed in 120, did it affect how I wrote? I'm sure it affected how and what you read, like it does for most of us. It changed everything. I had already been a published author. I mean, writer. Not author yet. I didn't write a book yet, publish a book yet. But I was a freelance writer. I made my own newspapers stuff. Newspapers. Been an editor, college newspaper editor. So I wrote things whatever I was in my mind, and I got the knowledge, and I realized that so many of the crucial things that I thought were incorrect. So I thought that the way that I wrote, the style that I was developing, was not right and exact. You know what I mean? I couldn't reconcile the two. You know what I mean? What got me so I didn't write? I stopped writing. It was very short lived, but it was very important because it's the only time I've ever done that, where I really felt like I don't think I am a writer. You know, and that was when I was getting the knowledge, and I was near, just about to get the knowledge, and as I'm getting 120, one of the albums I'm revisiting again and again, listening to is Jizz's Beneath the Surface. And, Liquid Swords is far greater, but Beneath the Surface, where I really started to appreciate and listen deeper to what he was saying. And and reconcile not being a writer, being a useless writer, not having any true substance. You know, so many of the things I wrote were about a mystery God. You know what I mean? And then so many times it seemed like it wasn't a mystery God. I would say I was God. Like it was all over the place. So I thought, but he had that great verse on Beneath the Surface, that second song, that second verse, and he said, the significance was not the vulgar applause of interest, but the feeling that exit completion of a sentence. With age and experience, my reason ripens. And I thought I have the time to ripen. And it's not about the applause of interest. Like it doesn't matter what other people think about what I have written wrong. I've already done it. It's already out there. Because it's not like the internet. You can't just delete it. But the feeling that exit completion of a sentence, and I started to get the joy of writing because I will find what I truly am once I start writing, once I start expressing myself and developing my style, my voice that was there. It just had a wrong thought, the most important wrong thought, and I let that become part of the voice, that I had this wrong thought and now I don't, and I just wrote, and I made everything definitive. I didn't write in a journal. Occasionally I wrote definitively, you know what I mean? And I said, the only reason I'm not a great writer is because I don't have enough written things under my belt. They may not publish it, but what if I could write as many things that would get me as good as possible? Well, unlike an artist, I don't need a space to record that isn't mine. I could just write. So I just wrote in those journals, and every book that had something that was worthwhile, I copied it in there. And it led to me memorizing portions of it, remembering portions of it, knowing where it was if I needed it, and then having insights or questions and understanding about it. And I just, I developed. I developed, you know, led me to discourses, developing methods where I would challenge what I think to as an exercise to an imaginary adversary and see how it would respond. And I would do these as written exercises or as mental exercises. But the knowledge of self did that. You know what I mean? I realized who I was. One thing about getting the knowledge of self is that I realized how much time that I have. That's what I realized. The original man is this true and living God. has no birth record. And I was like, I'm young enough. I always thought I was too old, because when you're doing things by the standards that they have for our people, if you're not an athlete by a certain age, you're done. If you don't succeed by a certain age, then you are done. And I felt that way in this hip hop realm. When I got knowledge of self, I realized that I could just develop, and it'll develop, and someday it'll be worthwhile because they're, especially for a writer, they'll just be a writer. And whether I develop in the age today, it certainly would develop and be there for ages tomorrow. So I just wrote. I just wrote. And that was definitely, knowledge of self definitely took me to another place with that. So certainly was profound. You know? That's peace, now it's a journey. If anything, you can email me, Sunez97. Anything that you need. Saba, I don't know if lottery ticket sellers play in the numeral 7 so much, but in today's frivolous culture, 7 is seen as a lucky number. So that's probably why, if they are. Okay, we come in these less. We have less than 10 minutes. Let me know what you, if anyone needs anything answered. You know what I mean? That way I can answer it too. I think it's still world changing on its own because it has information that nobody knows. You know, information, right? Mind you, I use the word information. Information about the devil, about the white man being made, that people still haven't taken the time to really engage in seeing if it's true or not. You know, um, and we're in a very crucial time because militancy is either blatant hatred or blatant cover up of researching the dark truths. about what it all is, though. You know what I'm saying? So it's based on, you know, denying that there is devilishment or devils is one negative way, but another negative way is to deny that, it is to accept devils and realize that there are devils just because, what I mean, without going through the study or the proof. That's as useless as anything else, you know. But certainly nothing is ever going to be as world changing as our understanding of anything. That's always going to be the case with everything. Our understanding is always going to be the the, the next level. It's a good question, though. That's a good last question. I don't need that much time for this. It'll be the last question. In my opinion, how come 5% is not in the forefront of hip hop anymore? I would say this. That's really not true. You know. So I'll just keep it basic with you. Like, when you look at who the leading people that make songs that you hear on the radio, though, that really isn't rap. So it's like looking at disco and asking why aren't soul singers leading the way? That's not what we're talking about hip hop. But we talk about hip hop, the actual music, and we look for who are the best of the best. We're all over. We're all over. You know what I mean? I mean, who can you name? There are people that are with the knowledge or seeking knowledge, getting knowledge, and certainly influenced by the knowledge. You know what I mean? And these books that I write and that I'm writing, and this documentation the last 10 plus years, the best of the best are influenced by us. So we are in the forefront. And shit, if you're looking at the historians of it, the journalists of it, look no further. I mean, we are absolutely in the forefront of the music. You know what I mean? I mean, where would you go? I mean, name someone that is dominant with actual hip hop, not, not pop music, or like these magazines where they put pop rappers next to actual hip hop artists. You know what I mean? And blend the two and mix them up. So you think that they belong together. No, no, it's two different worlds. When we talk about the world of hip hop, we're absolutely in the forefront. Absolutely. You know, there's no way around it. It's actually be incorrect. You know. I hope that answers the question. And honestly, because it's not really get too deep into hip hop, but look at my work. You know what I mean? I get to speak and in tune with some of the greatest artists out there. You know what I mean? I cover the best stuff, and trust me, the majority of them they were all in tune. We're in the cipher. We are known, and most of the people are influenced positively by this knowledge in some crucial way. You know, and that would include me. You know, I like to think I'm an important part of all this in some fashion. But with that said, I will let everyone go. You get back into the school. Please don't leave your questions out when I'm in the school, okay? Or when I have students there. You know what I mean? Because I will interact with both. But with that said, check the email. Go to 5% Media. Um, we need more writers. You know what I mean? So if you're ready, write. You know, of course, it's an honor to build one of the greatest honors. So thank you. All right. And with that said, peace and be exactly as you are. Creators creating in your creation. All right. Peace.